All right, today we're going to break down one of the most significant bits of modern military technology out there, the Agni-5 missile. We're going to look at what exactly makes this single weapon a real strategic game-changer on the world stage.
So think about this for a second. Because the Agni-5 is so much more than just a piece of engineering. It's a huge statement. It's a tool of geopolitical influence that has literally reshaped the strategic map across Asia and really beyond.
Okay, so before we get into the technical nuts and bolts of the missile itself, we have to understand the why. Why was this weapon even built? What strategic problem is it trying to solve?
And that brings us to this core idea for India. Minimum credible deterrence. Now, that might sound a little complex, but the concept is actually pretty simple. The goal isn't to be aggressive. It's all about making sure any potential attacker knows, without a doubt, that a devastating counterattack is coming their way. The theory is this keeps the peace by making the cost of starting a war just unimaginably high for everybody.
And you just can't talk about India's strategy in a vacuum. You've got to look at the neighborhood. The development of the Agni-5 is pretty widely seen as a direct response to create a balance of power with China and its own very well-established arsenal of long-range missiles. The name of the game here is equilibrium, making sure you have a credible second strike capability that, levels the strategic playing field.
All right, so we've covered the strategic why. Now let's get into the what. What exactly is this thing? Let's break down its anatomy.
First up, just the sheer reach. We're talking over 5,000 kilometers. This incredible range is what officially puts the Agni-5 into a very, very exclusive club, the Intercontinental Ballistic Missiles, or ICBMs. This means it can reach deep into Asia, even parts of Europe, and not just fundamentally changes India's strategic footprint.
Let's put some numbers on this beast. We're talking about a missile that's around 17 meters tall. I mean, picture a 5-story building, and it weighs 50 tons. But the spec you really want to pay attention to is the payload, up to 1,500 kilograms. That's how much the warhead can weigh, and that is what gives this deterrent its real teeth. But listen, it's not just about being big and having a long reach. What truly makes the Agni-5 a modern weapon is all the advanced technology that's packed inside it. And, just as important, its ability to move. That's what makes it so incredibly hard to counter.
So how does it cover that mind-boggling distance? It's all about its 3-stage design. You can kind of think of it like a relay race straight up into space. The first stage is just pure, brute force, blasting the missile out of the atmosphere. Stage 2 takes over, coasting through the vacuum of space. And then the third and final stage kicks in to maneuver the payload, positioning it perfectly for re-entry toward its target.
Now, I mentioned it's a solid fuel missile, and that detail, it's a huge deal. See, unlike older liquid fuel missiles that can take hours, sometimes even days to get ready, solid fuel is stable. It's ready to go almost immediately. And in a crisis, that speed, well, that's everything. It's the difference between a deterrent that's just on paper and one that's actually responsive.
And this is where the tech gets really, really sophisticated. It's a capability called MIRV. So what this means is that a single missile isn't just carrying one warhead, it's carrying several. And here's the kicker. Each one of those warheads can be aimed at a completely different target.
So why is that such a game changer? Well, because it's a total nightmare for any missile defense system. Instead of tracking and trying to hit one incoming threat, a defender suddenly has to deal with several, all at the same time. It just multiplies the missile's punch and makes the whole idea of deterrence that much more convincing.
The final piece of this puzzle is mobility. The Agni-5 isn't just sitting in a predictable hole in the ground, a silo. Nope, it's launched from a truck that can drive on roads. This means it can be hidden almost anywhere, which makes it nearly impossible for an enemy to find and destroy it before it launches. That survivability is the absolute key to guaranteeing what's called a second strike capability.
So, we've seen the strategy, and we've seen the tech. Now let's just zoom out for a second. How did this missile even come to be, and what does its existence really mean for the world today?
This thing didn't just appear overnight. It was a very careful multi-year process. You can see the first test flight was way back in 2012. But for me, the most critical date here has got to be 2018. That's when they launched it from a mobile platform, proving that vital survivability we just talked about. And right after that, it was officially brought into India's Strategic Forces Command.
So, not surprisingly, when you develop a weapons system this powerful, the rest of the world, well, it pays attention. It definitely drew a lot of international scrutiny. But throughout the whole process, India has been very consistent with its message. This is for self-defense, it's about deterrence, and it is not aimed at any one country.
Ultimately, its impact is probably best summed up by an assessment like this one. The Agni-5 missile is a flat-out game changer. That combination of range, advanced tech, and mobility, it gives India a level of strategic autonomy, of freedom to act that it simply did not have before.
And the story isn't over, not by a long shot. There's already a lot of discussion about what comes next. Analysts are speculating about a potential Agni-5 missile, one that could have an even greater range, pushing the boundaries of this technology even further out.
And all of this leaves us with a fundamental, kind of tricky question, right? The whole idea of deterrence is that these weapons are so powerful that they keep the peace. But as they get smarter and faster and more countries get them, you have to ask yourself, does this complicated balancing act actually make the world more stable? Or does it just raise the stakes in what is already the most dangerous game imaginable? Now that's something to think about.